Greetings, mighty companions. Anna Kujawa here, and this is Practical and Healing Applications of A Course in Miracles. And this is Wendy, who you can't see yet. You'll see her in a moment, unfortunately. We don't have a wide-angle lens yet. But we're going to do opening meditation, and that Wendy's going to play for us, and then we'll go into the section that Spirit chose for us to do. So if you haven't already, close your eyes. Welcome, everybody. Close your eyes and take a breath. Yeah. And just invite your mind to come back home to the power and the perfection of this moment right now. Tell your mind, it's safe to come back home to the now, mind. Tell your mind, there's nothing else I need to be doing. There's nowhere else I need to be besides here, right now, where I am. Bringing your mind out of the past and bringing your mind out to the future and allowing your mind to rest in the here and now. Trusting that everything that you could need for peace and joy and healing and abundance and safety is already here right now in this perfect moment. So let yourself rest in this moment now. I rest in the perfection and the power of this moment now. And breathe. Breathe the breath you would breathe if you knew that you were safe at home, safe forevermore, safe in love. Breathe that breath. Breathe the breath that you would breathe if you knew you were not alone and could never be alone again. How would that feel? How would you breathe then? The breath that you would breathe if you knew that you were only love, no matter what mistakes you have made. If you knew that you were only love, forever only love, how would you breathe? Tell yourself, I am safe as love created me. I am safe. I am safe as love created me forever. There is nothing to fear. This is a poem that came through, some guidance that came through the other day during the dance. And I'm going to read it while Wendy plays. Endurance and flexibility. Cultivate these two things for the road ahead. And remember, you have all you need, and you go with mighty companions beside you. Not only do you have all you need now, but you have all whom you need. The code word for safe passage through all the twists and turns is trust. Your code word is trust, and your mantra is fear not. And when in doubt on the road ahead, let gratitude to your teacher and let gratitude to all your companions fill your heart. And let this gratitude to your teachers and your companions fill your body with the purpose of forgiveness. When in doubt, let gratitude to your teacher and all your companions fill your heart and flood your body with the purpose of forgiveness.
In the morning, catch a falling dream, disappearing scene. It's forgiveness. I trust and forgive. Trust and forgive. I myself am timeless one, the timeless one. I myself am the timeless one, the timeless one. I myself am the timeless one, the timeless one. Serve God. Love me. And mend.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. So beautiful. That was perfect for today's lesson. When you hear it, you'll see. That's perfect. All right. That was Wendy DeMoss. And what's your website? Where can people find you?
Your heart open.
Chant your heart open. Yeah, baby. That's exactly what happens every time she sings. We chant our heart right on open. Beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. That was so beautiful. Check her out. Chant your heart open. Wendy DeMoss. All right. Okay, you guys. So, welcome Tim and Sandra and Zen and Maria and Peter. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this Healing Circle, Course in Miracles. All right, and thank you guys for bringing your beautiful, luscious communication devices here to be here in person. All right, so before class, I did the random number generator prayer where I ask Spirit, Spirit, what do you know that we all need that I could never know, I could never understand, but you know who's going to be watching this whenever they're going to be watching it, and you know what their needs are, their calls for love are. I don't. And so please decide through the never random number generator what we read, and it came up with the last section in the last chapter of the text. So it's like this is the last section of the text. So it's it's one of those sections where it's like where your teacher's like, okay, here we go, we've finished, we're graduating, and this is your graduation commencement speech. In the commencement speech, the graduation speech is like, okay, good job. You've come this far. You've done great. And now what we want you to remember moving forward from here is, when you have completed the course and now you're going to go out into the lab of that we call the world to apply what you learned in forgiveness school, this is what our teacher has to say to us. Okay, so I dedicate this to all of us who are graduating this level, this phase of the development of trust, and moving on to the next level of the development of trust. And that means you guys and me and you guys. All right, so we are in the section called Choose Once Again. And it's chapter 31, section 9. Okay? Chapter 31, section 9, Choose Once Again. All right. Don't forget, I'm open to questions and comments. I love all your questions and comments. I love all y'all's questions and comments. They take it to another level. And this section is really wonderful in that it gives us a way of looking at all of our trials, all of our tribulations, all of our challenges, all of our problems in such a way that these problems not only get solved, but they get turned into blessings for you and everyone around you. Now, how about that as something that's practical? You mean there's a way to look at whatever trial I'm going through, whenever I'm going through it, in such a way that it turns that problem, that trial, into something that is a blessing for me and all the world? Hey, that sounds real practical. So, here we go. So, if one of you would be willing to write the name, Choose Once Again, Chapter 31, Section 9, in the comment section, that'd be really helpful. You guys on YouTube and you guys on Facebook, thank you for that. Okay, here we go. Choose once again. It says, temptation has one lesson it would teach. And temptation in this sense means trials, problems. So I want you to hear the word temptation meaning trials or problems. Problems have one lesson that problems would teach in all of your trials forms, wherever your problems occur. Okay, so our trials are doing what? They are temptations that are teaching us one lesson in any form that the trial comes in. Okay, so you mean problems aren't accidents? Trials aren't accidents? Apparently, trials and problems aren't accidents. They come with a purpose. They come with a purpose to try to teach us something. Okay? And the trials that are coming from not that which loves us. So it's saying temptations and trials have but one lesson that they would teach in all their forms wherever they occur. Problems, trials are trying to persuade you, the guiltless child of God, that you are a body. That not only are you a body, but you're born in what must die. And not only are you a body, but since you are just a body, you are unable to escape your body's frailty, which means you are bound by what your body orders you to feel. That's what problems are trying to teach you. That's what temptation is always trying to teach you. Okay? You got a problem, you're going through a trial, it's the ego trying to get you to believe that you're just a body, you're limited, you know, the only strength you have is what your body has, and what you cannot escape your body's frailty, you're frail, you're vulnerable, and you are bound by what your body orders you to feel. That's what temptation is. That's what trials are. Okay? It's the ego trying to teach you that you're just a body, and since you're just a body, you're very limited, you're very frail, you're very vulnerable, and that you are a victim of your body. You know, you got a stomach ache, well, you got to feel whatever your body orders you to feel. You know, oh, my body has a stomach ache, I guess I have to suffer. Okay? That's what temptation, problems, trials, that's the purpose that they came with. Okay? Now, you know how there's that New Age concept that that God sends you problems, you know, to teach you. Remember that concept? You know, God would never give you a problem that you couldn't handle. Remember that idea that God gives us problems, that the universe? This is saying, no, the ego is bringing those problems. The ego is bringing those trials because your ego is trying to convince you that you're just a frail, vulnerable, limited body that's gonna die. Maybe today, and if not today, soon. Okay? So just remember that. It's not the universe, it's not love, it's not God sending you a problem. It's your ego that's trying to get you to feel little, small, weak, and mortal. Okay? Now, it says not only that, but the problems also are teaching you, trying to teach you that your body sets the limits on what you can do. The body's power is the only strength you have, and that your grasp cannot exceed your body's tiny reach. That is what problems, that one, was to say, temptation has one lesson it would teach in all its forms wherever temptation occurs. So that's a totally different interpretation of a problem. This is a temptation. This is my ego trying to tempt me. This is my ego trying to tempt me to believe that I'm just a body and I'm weak and I'm frail and I'm limited and I'm gonna die. Now, that's a different way of interpreting a problem, wouldn't you say? Totally different. Okay? Now, then it says, would you be this limited, mortal, frail, vulnerable body if your true self, the Christ in you, appeared to you in all its glory, asking you but this? Choose once again if you would take your place among the saviors of the world, or would remain in hell and hold everybody else there with you. Because your higher self, the Christ in you, has come, and it is asking this of you. Wow. So what are you saying that's happened? Are you saying that the Christ in me has arrived? It has come. Our higher self, our true self, our self that is not a body, our self that is a glorious, powerful, immortal spirit has showed up. It showed up. Maybe you didn't notice it coming. Maybe you didn't get its text saying it was on its way. But it's here, and it's standing in front of you, saying to you while you are in the midst of your temptation to believe that you're a helpless, weak, frail body, limited. It is standing in front of you saying, is this really what you want to be? And it's saying, choose once again, myself, choose once again if you want to take your place among the saviors of the world, or want to stay in hell and hold everybody else there with you. Okay, so that's what's really going on. I think I'm just lost in the temptation of this problem. Feeling weak, feeling vulnerable, feeling guilty, feeling limited. And what's really going on is that my true self, my higher self, my unlimited self is standing before me saying, well, that's an option. Or here's another option that you could choose if you want to. And that's what's really going on. Beautiful. That's a totally different interpretation of us in our trials right now. All right. Now, how do you make this choice? Well, how easily is this choice explained? What choice? The choice to be this limited body that's going to die, who has every reason to feel anxious and afraid, or to accept myself as a savior of the world. Wow. Wait a minute. I'm a savior of the world? I'm a savior of the world? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Okay. And so here's the choice that is in front of us to make. Who you're going to be. The weak, guilty, limited body, or the savior of the world? Let's see. Let's see. And just in case you're tempted to go, well, I don't know how I could choose that. I mean, that seems pretty big and important. It says, how do you make this choice? How easily is this choice explained? So basically, it's going to tell us how to make that choice. How do you choose to take your place among the saviors of the world instead of being a limited, weak, vulnerable, guilty person who's going to die? How do you make that choice? All right. Well, it says you always choose between your weakness and the strength of Christ in you. That's what you're always choosing between. Now, I want to talk to you about the term Christ, the Christ in you. The Course in Miracles defines Christ as yourself as you were created, your original self, your real self, your true self. That isn't a body, that isn't limited to a body. Your true self that isn't weak, your true self that doesn't have to feel whatever your body orders you to feel. Now that's the kind of self, that's the self I want to experience. I want to experience my true self. You know, my true self that knows it never dies, that knows that it isn't limited by a body. Okay, that's the Christ in you. Okay, so it says you're always choosing between your weakness and the strength of the Christ in you. Okay, whenever you're making a choice, that's what you're always choosing between. I'm either going to go for my weakness or I'm going to go for the strength of my real self. And that's what I'm always choosing between whenever there is a choice to make in every thought that I'm choosing, in every decision that I make. That's what I'm always choosing between. It may seem like I'm choosing whether to have chicken or vegetables for lunch, but what I'm really always choosing between is my own weakness as a body or the strength of my real self. It says, and what you choose is what you think is real. So simply by never using your weakness to direct your actions, you have given your weakness no power, and then the light of your real self is given charge of everything you do. How would you like the strength, how would you like the power of your real strength given charge of everything you do? I would love that. I would love for the Christ in me to be in charge of everything I do. Imagine that. Imagine what you would be doing. Imagine what you would be creating. Now, the way that you give the power and the strength of your real self power to what? To give in charge of everything you do is simply by never using your weakness to direct your action. Okay? I love that guide for action, the ultimate guide for action. What should I do? You know, 1,000,000 times a day. Well, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? What should I do? What should I do? Okay, this is saying if you will just not let your weakness direct your action, then the real strength in you will be given charge of everything you do. So, what should I do? Just don't let your weakness, which is what? Your fear, your anger, your guilt, the perception that you're lacking something, the perception that you're alone, those are all things, those are all synonyms of your weakness. Those are thoughts and beliefs that make you feel weak, that make you feel small, that make you feel guilty. Okay? Any feeling that doesn't feel good, any feeling that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel loving, that doesn't feel happy. This is saying all you got to do is just don't let it direct your action. So it seems so simple. It was exactly what it said. Simply. It's so simple, okay? But it's a great guide for action.
So what about when something happens
And the feelings kick
Yes,
in,
and
right.
they're very strong, and even though you're choosing to not be, saying something you'll regret, but the feelings are very strong, so you may have to just, to me, I can't just turn them off.
Right, exactly. And it's saying, that's a great question Bonnie was asking, but what if you're having those feelings of weakness and anger, all the synonyms for weakness, anger, guilt, shame, whatever, confusion. What if you're feeling those and there seems to be a choice to make? Okay? And what it's saying is, and you said, I can't just turn those off. And it's saying, don't try to turn them off, just don't use them as your guide for action. So in other words, the ego's always telling you to do something. The ego's always like, tell them off. Tell them how you really feel. Tell them what they're doing wrong. Correct them. How dare they? I'll show you. The ego's always telling you to do something. The ego never says, just fear not. The ego never says, just rest, and in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So in other words, just don't do whatever your weakness, don't do whatever your ego's telling you to do. Ego's very active. It's always about action. Do this, do that, do this. So, Course in Miracles says you're not asked to fight against your weakness. You're only asked to not use it as your guide for action.
And I find it helpful to let the feelings be felt.
Yes.
It's the only way they're going to pass through, and
Yes.
otherwise you stuff them down.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. It's not about denial. It's not about suppression or repression. It's just simply don't do what your ego's telling you to do right now. And the ego is the part of you that's always upset, always hurt, always feeling insecure, always feels like it never has enough. So just so you know.
Like that movie Violet.
Yes,
She's
it's
having
great.
those thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ego's telling her, say it, just say
Yes,
it, just say
exactly.
it.
That's a great example, that movie Violet. Fantastic example of exactly this. I love what Bridget says. Don't do what you normally do. Right on, Bridget. Exactly. Yes.
But what about when it's you're in the moment of the feelings and they're hitting you, and it's about your own self-guilt?
Yes, exactly. Then don't do what your guilt, don't do what your feelings of guilt want you to do. Like, for instance, what your guilt wants you to do is to continue to feel guilty. Ego say, oh, what's the action my ego wants me to take right now? My ego wants me to feel really bad. My ego wants me to feel guilty. My ego wants me to feel ashamed. My ego wants me to hide. Right. And this is saying, if you just won't act on it, then the real strength of your real self will take over. Hallelujah. I love that. Isn't that great? I don't have to feel powerful. I don't have to know the truth about myself in that moment. All I have to do is don't use the ego. Don't use it. And then our real strength will go, great, you just step aside, good job, you did very good, you did your job. Now your real strength, your unlimited strength, will take it from here. And then what your real strength the strength of the Christ in you, what it does will blow you away. You'll be like, what? No, that came through me? That came through me? Wow, okay, right? So that's how we make that choice. What choice? The choice between I want to take my place among the saviors of the world, as opposed to making the choice to be the weak, vulnerable, miserable, angry person who's gonna die. And is worried about how that's gonna happen. Okay, so that's how we make that choice of taking our place among the saviors of the world instead of just being a limited ego. When the ego comes up in you, which is your weakness, just don't let it be your guide for action. Beautiful. And then the strength of the Christ in you, which is beyond what you can even conceive, will take charge of everything, will take charge of what to do. Beautiful. Wonderful. Now, it says, and what you choose is what you think is real. Simply by never using weakness to direct your actions, you'll have given your weakness no power, and then the light and the power of the Christ in you will be given charge of everything you do. Why? Because by making this choice, you have brought your weakness to your real self, your powerful self, and then your powerful real self will have given you its strength instead. So never using your weakness to guide your actions is you bringing your weakness to your real self, your powerful self. And then your powerful self will give you its strength instead. It's like, thank you for not using your weakness as your guide for action. Thank you for not acting on your ego's thoughts right there. And now, in place of your weakness, I will give you your real strength, my real strength, says our higher self. Beautiful. Yes?
It's really a great question, because when we get upset, think how fast a plan comes to us. I'm going to be this way now, or I'm going to do this, you know. So the plan always comes right away. So
Yes.
recognize it and don't do the plan.
Yes.
That's
Thank
very-
you.
that's tough.
Thank you for saying that. I love what you just said. Greg says, that notice how whenever you're feeling weak, or I mean, we never go, wow, I'm feeling weak. We always go like, oh, I'm offended, or that person, we tend to feel angry or offended. We don't experience our weakness as weakness. We experience it as offense or anger, right? Or sadness or guilt or shame. But what Greg was saying was, when we feel those feelings of weakness, what we always do is come up with a plan, like, I'll show you, or I'll never do that again, or I'll never let somebody treat me like that again. Ego is always quick with a plan. Well, I'll never show my feelings again. A plan to fortify you in your weakness. I'll never be vulnerable like that again. I'll never say how I feel again, right? That's the action that we always take or always come up with when we're feeling weak. That's perfect. Thanks for saying that, Greg. That's exactly what I do. My ego comes up whenever I'm feeling weak or scared. My ego's like, all right, here's a plan we're going to make up. I'll never do that, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do this, and then I'll never feel this feeling again.
I'm not going to go talk to him.
Exactly.
Leave.
Exactly. I'll show them.
I'll show them.
Okay. I'll never speak up again. Then they'll be sorry. Oh, that's a great plan you just came up with from your weak state. Yes, the weakness in us is full of plans. It's the planning aspect of our minds. The ego is the weak and planning and defending aspect of our consciousness. It's always feeling weak. It's always feeling lack. It's always worried about abandonment and loss. And it's always trying to make a plan to defend against that. Okay. All right. We recognize that part. Beautiful. It says, trials are but lessons which we failed to learn, presented once again, so that where we made a faulty choice before, we can now make a better choice and thus escape all the pain that what you chose before has brought to you. So that's what trials are. So that's what's really going on. Okay? It's not, oh, look, I'm weak. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, there's something wrong with me. And it's also not, what a terrible person they are. How could they do that? They're a bad person. What's wrong with them? How could they do that? What's their problem? Trials are our lessons. Trials are our lessons that we didn't learn before. They came up before, we didn't learn them. What did we do instead? We let our weakness direct our action, and we let our weakness give us a lot of plans by which to defend against that feeling of weakness. That's what we did last time. And then that's why the problem comes back around.
Failed the test.
Exactly. Those problems were a test, a pop quiz that we failed last time. And now, because the universe is loving, the universe wants us to be free of our false perceptions. The universe wants us to be free of our misperceptions. Right? And so does our higher self. The Christ in us wants us to not be our higher self doesn't want us to be afraid of lack and loss and abandonment and hurt forevermore. Our higher self wants to be free of those misperceptions. Our higher self wants us to be free of the misperception, the false belief that we can be hurt, or that we can be abandoned, or that we can lose, or that we can be without. Our higher self wants us to be free of those lies that we have been telling ourselves and teaching ourselves for so long. And so here comes the problem again. And so it says, trials are but lessons which we failed to learn, presented once again, so that where we made a faulty choice before, we can now make a better choice, and in this way escape all the pain that prior choice brought to us. Okay, so that's what's going on. That's what's happening in this trial, in this problem. It's not at all what I thought it was. Okay. So this is the way we now want to interpret our trials. And it says, in every difficulty, in all distress, and in each perplexity that we face, our higher self is calling to us and is gently saying to us, my brother, choose again. My sister, myself, choose again. Isn't that beautiful? Our higher self, our loving right mind, that's all it says. It doesn't say, what a dummy. How long must I bear with you? It says, my brother, my sister, myself, choose again. Choose again. That's it. No guilt, no attack, just a reminder of a choice. A reminder of a choice. And the reason that our higher self is in every single one of our difficulties and our distress and perplexity just saying to us, calling to us, saying, choose once again, is because our higher self would not leave one source of pain unhealed. Our higher self wouldn't leave one false image left to veil the truth in us. And our higher self wants to remove all misery from us whom God created altar unto joy. Wow, our Creator created us as an altar to joy? Wow, that is very different than the way we normally think about ourselves. You know, is that the way you were thinking about yourself today? I'm an altar unto joy. Bring all joy unto me. I am an altar unto joy. Wow. Yes, yes.
Just a question, comment about when you're in the middle of a thing that feels like you need to discuss this with the person. So what I'm getting from this is that you can share what needs to be discussed, because to spiritualize it away like it's just gone, you know, it's just going to show its head again.
Yes.
Because that's what the trigger was.
Yes.
So what I'm thinking is this is saying is that you just from the loving place that's not judging the person as wrong, share your feelings of what that was about and ask for understanding so that this doesn't continue to happen.
So Bonnie is saying that what she's hearing is that that you're not supposed to just push your feelings away, but that you discuss your feelings, but from a different perspective, from a loving perspective. Am I hearing that correct? Okay. And yes, after you do this, yes, after you bring your weakness to your higher self, the real power in you, okay, then your higher self will direct you. What does it say about your higher self? Your higher self, its power will be given charge to direct everything you do and say. So first we go, here's this soul trial again. Yeah, boy, aka pattern, aka pattern. Here's this old pattern again that I know so well. Oh, I know this pattern so well, so well. Here it is again. Okay, but this time I am going to interpret it differently. I'm going to do something different so that I can have a different result and maybe even break this pattern and not experience this thing again. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell myself, this trial is a lesson I didn't learn before, and my higher self is asking me if I want to choose once again relative to this pattern, this old trial, this old pattern. And so then I make the choice and I say, teacher, higher self, I want to take my place among the saviors of the world instead of fix this person or defend myself against this problem or get rid of this person. Instead, I want to take my place among the saviors of the world. I want to remember the truth about myself right now. I want to, instead of what I used to do, which was, I got to change your mind, I've got to show you, I've got to change this situation so that it never happens again, or I've got to run away, or whatever. You know, I'm going to interpret it, correct perception, I'm going to interpret it like my higher self does, like Spirit does. And then I'm going to do what Spirit said to do, and I'm going to choose again. Now, then the power and the strength of your higher self then will say, and now say to so-and-so, da, 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 da. But now you're going to be sharing with that person from a wholly responsible position where you're sharing with them, you know, a lie that I have been believing about myself my whole life and suffering from that I came up again today to choose once again is da 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 da. And I see how I was projecting that onto the people and the situations in my life, including you, my friend. And now I see that it wasn't you or that, it was my old false beliefs about myself. And I remembered the truth about myself, and now I feel wonderful. And now all I feel to you, my friend, is gratitude. Now, anybody who receives that is going to be like, that's amazing, right on. But that's how the power of our higher self shares. Our weakness shares our feelings in ways that people feel guilty and defensive when we share them.
What if you have a request? Just take a simple example like, honey, could you please squeeze out the sponge or something like
Yes,
that?
yes.
The old sponge story.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes. If that's a repeating pattern trial for you, then still the same thing. You work that process that it just shared, and then your higher self will give you the idea of sharing it that will be the most brilliant, loving idea, where they would be like, that's the best idea I ever heard, you know, or the person, you wouldn't even have to say anything. You do this process, and now you're in your strength and your power of your higher self, and then you come home and you notice that your mate is wringing out the sponge, and you never said anything. Now that's some power. You took responsibility for it in your mind, and they changed their behavior, and you never said anything. Now that's some real power. And I'm not saying don't say anything. What I'm saying is that when we don't use weakness to direct what we say, then our higher self shares whatever needs to be shared in such a way that they only feel blessed. Even if you were saying, please squeeze out the sponge after you wash the dishes.
It seems
Right.
like if you say something genuine with love and coming from the strength of your higher self,
Yes,
and seeing that divine in them and
Yes.
saying it
exactly.
with no intention of hurt or guilt,
Yes,
that they can receive it.
exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you don't have to figure out how to do that loving way of asking for it. You know, your higher self's power and brilliance will direct you what to say and do. And your higher self is so freaking powerful that it often just changes it, and you never even had to say anything. Now, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. I love it. When I take responsibility for one of my things and I go, yeah, that's my pattern, and okay, you know, Holy Spirit, be you in charge, and that's my pattern. I'm bringing my weakness, my lies to you, higher self. I want you to handle this for me and correct this for me, higher self. And then what I was upset about has changed. And I never said anything, and I never even did anything. Or all of a sudden I am inspired to say something that is so loving and so brilliant that the person I'm sharing it with feels nothing but love. So how cool is that? Now that's real power. Okay? Real power first takes responsibility for your own trial, and then extends so much love and gratitude that that the only thing that is happening around you is the good, the beautiful, and the holy, and the fun and the abundant. Thank you for asking that honest and practical question.
Well, then also one more thing. So sometimes there actually needs to be a period of time, because if something has happened where you become, the ego is triggered,
Yes.
and then we're projecting or whatever,
Yes.
to get to this state of, you know, seeing through this vision of you know, what this purpose is really about and why this tribulation and trial is happening
Yes.
to me, that could take
That's true. It
time.
absolutely. It absolutely.
Doesn't seem to happen in like seconds.
Absolutely. That's why it's always best to, when you are in your weakness, when you're in your ego, do nothing until you have done this process and then been inspired by true power, which is true love. So truly, you know, it is good to wait and do nothing. And of course, in Miracles says that many times. Be quiet, you know, be quiet and ask and then wait. You know, that's the formula for how do you make that choice of becoming a savior to the world instead of just another crucifier of the world. How do you do that? When stuff comes up, when trials come up, you take it to your higher self, your loving self, spirit within, and you bring your weakness to spirit's strength in you, and then you wait in patience and in faith and trust, because it's impossible that you bring your weakness to spirit. You bring your weakness to love and you say, decide for me, because I don't want to let my weakness direct my action or my words right now. It's impossible that you do that and spirit not go, thank you very much, I'll take it from here. It's not possible that you bring your weakness to spirit and spirit's like, I'm so freaking busy, don't you know, everybody else is bringing their weakness to me, you know, come on now.
Yeah, right.
And it's a Saturday.
Yeah. Get back to you later.
So, you know, when the Course in Miracles talks about that trust is the foundation of our ability to take our place among the saviors of the world, that's a lot of it. Trust is what you do. It takes trust to be quiet. It takes trust to wait. It takes faith in the power of spirit. Okay? It takes faith to wait upon that spirit that cannot fail, and it cannot fail to answer you when you ask for its help. It's impossible that you ask for something from spirit and you not be answered. Now you may not know that, you may not recognize you've been answered, you may not, and it may take a while for you to hear it or to perceive that answer, but it's not possible that you not be answered. So, wow, that's beautiful. I love it. So, and the reason that whatever lessons you failed to learn are going to be presented once again for you to make another choice is because your higher self loves you and wants you to be free from all suffering. Every single little teeny tiny bit of suffering. All of it, not just some of it, all of it. And that's why what you didn't learn before is going to come up again. And so if we were really perceiving correctly, when the trial came back around, we would be thinking to ourselves, all right, I finally get to get this one answered right. I get to learn this one once and for all and be free of it and go on to more fun, more joy. Right? Because the truth is that the way we were created as altars to joy, not altars to pain, altars to joy. In other words, we were created only for joy. That's how God built us. That's how God created us, as joy beings. Only joy. God did not create us God did not wire us for anything but joy. We're not wired for anything but joy. And so when we experience something besides joy, it's like, you know, something's not right. You know, that's why it doesn't feel good. because you're not wired for anything but joy. Only joy is natural in a child of God, for a child of God. And so everything that's not joy needs to be brought to the corrector. It needs to be brought to the healer within you. It's like the joy exchange program. You bring us your pain, we give you joy. It's the joy exchange program. Yes.
Does that work on like physical pain too?
Mm-hmm. All pain, all suffering. All suffering. I read a lot of Edgar Cayce, and so many times in the readings that he would do, somebody would be, coming to him with some kind of physical ailment. And they'd be like, I have this pain in my back right here. It always hurts right here. He go, yes, because that came from that lifetime where, the husband of the person you had an affair with shot you in the back. And so, in other words, a lesson you failed to learn still there, the lesson of guilt that we still carry. So, yes, so even physical suffering is a trial, a lesson that we failed to learn, presented once again. Okay? It's a great question. All right. And also we heard at the beginning, all perplexity, all trials, all suffering is a temptation from your ego to believe that you're just a body, a weak, helpless, frail, vulnerable body, that you're a victim of your body, and whatever your body orders you to feel, you have to feel. So, that's the physical pain. I believe I'm a body. That's what the physical pain is all about. It's the ego tempting you to believe you're just a body. And how better for the ego to tempt you to believe you're a body than to give you a pain or a sickness? How can you easily say, I'm not a body, and you hurt or you're sick? It's very difficult to say, I'm not a body. It's very difficult to believe that you're not a body when your body hurts. But that's the purpose of the sickness. That's the purpose of the sickness, is for you to go, well, see how much I hurt? That's how I know I am a body. Nobody who's not a body would be feeling this. So physical sickness is a temptation that your ego is giving you to convince you that you are a body and you're gonna die. And you deserve it. Okay? So it says temptation, let's say sickness is a temptation that is trying to persuade you that you're just a body, that you're born in what must die, you're unable to escape the body's frailty, you're bound by what the body orders you to feel, and the body sets the limits on what you can do. That's what physical sickness is. Dang. I thought I just slept wrong in the bed. No. You are still, the lesson came around for you to choose once again whether you're going to be a body or whether you're going to be a savior for the world, and you chose to be a body again. So why? So that you could have some specialness, so that you could have some more of something. Okay? And here I am again. Okay? So now the beauty of the truth is in the beauty of interpreting problems and trials the way A Course in Miracles does, is that as soon as you correctly interpret a problem, the problem is gone. Okay? Because what was the problem in the first place? A false interpretation, a misinterpretation. And so I don't have to believe that that's what the sickness is. I don't have to believe or understand how this trial that I'm going through is a lesson I didn't learn before, presented once again. But once I treat it as if that's what it is and interpret it like that, problem gone. Even if I don't understand how that could happen. Isn't that beautiful? That's the beauty and the power of the truth. All right, everybody take a breath. Thank you for your really, really practical, good questions that we all have. Beautiful. Beautiful. Hi, Jean. Hi, Patty. Lovely to see you. Would you guys be willing to turn on the lights? Thank you. The small ones. Okay. Great. Now, it says, your higher self, your real self, the Christ in you, would not leave you comfortless, which means it doesn't want to leave you alone in your dreams of hell. Your higher self wants to release your mind from everything that hides the strength, your strength and your power and your beauty and your love from you. That's what your higher self wants for you, and that's it. And that's why it's always there. It's always there in every single one of your perplexities, all of your distress, every one of your difficulties. Your higher self is right there. Literally right there. It would not leave you comfortless, alone in dreams of hell. You know, when we're suffering, we feel alone. When we're suffering, we feel like, well, nobody knows what I'm feeling. Nobody is feeling what I'm feeling. You know, suffering is something that makes you feel separate and alone. Why? Because nobody else is experiencing that suffering just like you're experiencing it. So how could you not feel like you're different from them? We're obviously different because I'm suffering like this and they're not. They don't even know I'm suffering. So this is telling us that it's impossible that you be suffering and be alone. It's impossible that you be suffering and your higher self is not right there with you with the total, complete mercy, compassion, and nothing but a desire for you to be free from suffering. And it never leaves you. It's not like, this pattern again? Come on. Just call me when you got a new pattern, okay? It can never abandon you. It's always there with you saying, choose once again, choose once again, choose once again, choose once again. No guilt, no frustration, no anger. Wow. And when we realize that we are not alone, when we are experiencing difficulty, distress, perplexity, when we realize we're not alone, that's the end. That's the end. Because what was the problem? The belief that I'm separate. Okay. So next time you're experiencing any kind of difficulty, distress, or perplexity, imagine your higher self, however you like to imagine your higher self. You know, however you like to imagine Holy Spirit, higher self. Imagine it. Close your eyes and imagine it sitting there with you. You know, loving you, patient with you, compassionate, mercy, loving you way more than you love yourself. Imagine it there with you, saying, myself, my brother, my sister, choose once again. If you would take your place among the healers of the world, or continue to be in hell and keep everybody else in hell with you. See what happens. Okay, great. And it says your higher self's innocence is your innocence because it is the only power that is real in you. Your higher self's strength is your strength because your higher self, the Christ in you, is the self that God created as God's only creation. Wow, you are God's only creation. You're God's only child. That's pretty damn special. I'm God's only child. I'm God's only creation. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay. We are God's only creation. And And the Christ is us as God created us. God didn't create us and something else. God didn't create us and the ego. God didn't create us and pain. Okay? And we are, what does it say? It says, we are the self that God created as God's only creation. That's the workbook lesson today. I am as God created me. Okay? Which is the idea that if we accepted, I am as God created me, not as I think I am. I am as God created me, not as I learned I am. That is the end of all suffering, 100% completely, no exception. Because all of the suffering is the belief that I am not as God created me, I am as I made me, or I am as they made me. That's where all the suffering comes from. I believe something else made me besides God. All right. It says, and the images that we have made of ourselves as the body that can suffer and die, they cannot prevail against what God himself would have you be. Wow. Whatever images we made up of ourselves as guilty, a failure, limited, lacking, shameful, all the images we made up of ourselves. A body, a woman, a man, mortal, fallible, full of sin. All the images that we learned about ourselves, they cannot prevail against what God himself created us to be. So no matter how we want to see ourselves, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It will never be more true than what God created. So in all of our perplexity, that's where we are insisting on being what we think we are. That's not good enough. That's what all the perplexity and distress is. I'm insisting on being what I think I am. Instead of going, hey, Creator, since you're the one who created me, what am I? Imagine that. When you're not loving yourself and not feeling good about yourself, do something different and ask your source what your source thinks of you. What do you think of me, God? You're the one who created me. You're the authority here. What do you think of me? Am I an idiot? Am I a loser? Am I unlovable? Is that true, God? Like little kids. Like little kids who know they don't understand what they see, and so they ask. That's what we're learning to be. Little kids who go, is this true about me? Am I unlovable? Am I guilty? Am I a bad person? Is that true, God? And then letting our Creator go, I'm so glad you asked, my child. I'm so glad you asked. Okay, great. So now it says, learn then, this is the instructions, learn then the happy habit of response to all temptation to see yourself as weak and vulnerable with these words. I am as God created me, and God's child can suffer nothing, and I am God's child. And when you say these words, you are inviting your true self's strength to prevail. You're inviting your higher self's strength to replace all your weakness with the strength that comes from God, which is a strength that can never fail. Okay? So those are the instructions. That's the formula. The formula for what? When you are experiencing temptation, what temptation? Temptation to see yourself as weak and frail and vulnerable. Okay? Know how that feels? Feeling weak and frail and vulnerable. I can be replaced. I'm not good enough. I don't have what I need. He's saying the instruction here is to learn a happy habit of response, a habitual response, and a happy habitual response. Okay, so a habit. What kind of habit? A response habit. I'm in the habit of responding happily to my temptation to feel weak, frail, and vulnerable. Okay, yes?
So it's basically turning around what we've all been taught, is to have these negative thoughts about ourselves.
Yes.
To have all these things running constantly.
Yep.
And now we've created that habit of always thinking these thoughts about ourselves.
Yes.
And now we're being asked, if you don't want to suffer, then you take these habits instead.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Exactly. We're being taught to go like this. Suffering. Say this. Suffering. Oh, I'm tempted to feel weak and frail and vulnerable. Suffering, feeling weak and frail and vulnerable means I'm supposed to say this. You know, it's like learning the cues. You know, like Pavlov's dog, you know, ring the bell every time they feed the dog. Then every time they ring the bell, the dog salivates. In this case, it's every time you're suffering, that's the time to say, I am as God created me. Not as that person created me. Not as I created me. Not as this situation created me. Not as my job created me. I am as God created me. And God's child can suffer nothing. And I am God's creation. I am as God created me. God's creation can suffer nothing. What can God's creation suffer? You know, if you're a creation of God, can you possibly lack? How can you possibly die? How can you possibly be broken? How can you possibly lose anything that's real? If you're God's creation, how can you possibly not be loving and lovable? How could you possibly die? How could you be broke if God created you? The Course in Miracles says blasphemy is thinking that you created yourself, that your creation is of your making. That's the ultimate blasphemy. Okay. Yes.
So it sounds to me that it takes this just 100% conscious awareness of God, in the presence of God in every moment, like always having that consciousness.
Yes.
Because what happens is the unconsciousness takes over.
Exactly.
We're not conscious of God.
Yes.
So we forget that whole thing.
Yes.
So just being extremely conscious of God, which revolves around everything that we talked about the other day with trust.
Yep.
And when you have that and just being completely conscious, then it can become a habit.
Exactly. And the way that it becomes conscious, the way Bonnie said, it's about having constant awareness. Constant consciousness. Right. And the way that you get to constant consciousness, constant awareness of the truth is by training your mind. And A Course in Miracles is a mind training program. And so, and the Course in Miracles says, untrained mind can accomplish nothing, which means an untrained mind cannot remember the truth when it needs it. An untrained mind, when it's experiencing weakness and vulnerability and frailty and anger and suffering, it doesn't remember. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to say.
Right.
Okay. And so that's how you get to constant consciousness or constant awareness. It comes from mind training. And that's what we don't like to do, because we have very untrained, very undisciplined minds. You know, just, you know, for 5 minutes, watch your mind. It's wild. It's crazy. It's like, you know, yes.
And it's okay to remember what you should have done, even if it's 2 days later.
Yes.
Because, no, really, because your old
you, Greg.
pattern, you
Yes,
never
that's
even
right.
you didn't remember anything.
That's
ever.
right.
At least you're training yourself.
Yes.
It goes from 2 days later to 1 day later to half a day later to now you're remembering in the middle of the situation.
Yes. Thank you. I like what you said. That's so helpful. Greg reminded us that it's okay to remember what you're supposed to remember 2 days later without giving yourself any guilt, you know, because the next time it won't take 2 days. You know,
be proud that you actually remember.
Yes, be proud that you remember it at all.
Yeah, I should have done that.
Exactly. Exactly. The Course in Miracles says, do not feel guilty. You know, it says, don't feel guilty that you didn't remember what you were supposed to remember. Don't feel guilty, because that's just a trick. It's an ego temptation to keep you from learning. You know, the ego don't want you to learn it. So when you don't remember to say it, the ego's like, see, you'll never get this course. You know, you're a Course in Miracles loser. So just give it up. Go do something else.
Or so when you realize that you've placed guilt on another.
Yes. Yes.
How do you not then feel
guilty.
guilt
Yes.
yourself
Yes.
for being wrong or
Yes. Or
you know,
unloving
doing
or
this
whatever.
or unloving.
Yes. Elaine was saying, well, when you have given guilt to another, how do you not feel guilty for doing, because you did that? Okay. And when you have given guilt to another, aka attacked another, that is your weakness. That's, you know, number one, don't let your weakness direct your action of what to do next. You know, your weakness would say, you're never going to get a Course in Miracles. You're a bad Course in Miracles student. You know, bad Course in Miracles student. You know, guilt. You know, your weakness wants you to feel guilty and to stop trying. So when you have given someone guilt or attacked someone, instead of feeling guilty, you're supposed to say to yourself, I am as God created me. God's creation can suffer nothing, and I am God's creation. Or you could say to the person that you gave guilt to, you are as, not out loud, you know, unless they would like that.
They might.
Yeah, maybe. Your person might, you know, yeah. You might say to that person, so-and-so, you are as God created you. You can suffer nothing as a child of God, and you are a creation of God. Okay? And so now what you did was you invited your higher self's strength to replace all the weakness that had you give them guilt. So it's the weakness that has us giving other people guilt and attacking them. That's only when we're weak do we even feel tempted to give other people guilt. Only when I feel like I can be hurt, I'm vulnerable, I could lose. That's the only time I want to give somebody guilt, to try to control their behavior. So don't let the weakness direct your action, and then say the truth about yourself and them.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes.
Is this process the same as forgiveness?
It's the exact same as forgiveness. That's all A Course in Miracles is, you know, 1,000+ pages of synonyms of forgiveness.
So forgiveness is just really seeing the truth. In
Forgiveness,
yourself and in the other person.
the definition the Course itself gives for forgiveness is correct perception. So when you see things according to how Spirit sees things, you are forgiving them. That is forgiveness. It's not forgiveness isn't an action thing. you know, and it's not an acknowledgement of a bad thing that was done, that did happen. It's just actually seeing things correctly. And, you know, seeing things correctly is, hey, I'm a creation of God. As a creation of God, I can't be hurt by what they said or what I said. I'm a creation of God. I can't lose love just because such and such didn't want to be my friend anymore. I can't be turned into a bad person just because so-and-so doesn't like me. I'm created by God. I'm a creation of God. I can't be hurt by somebody. I can't be abandoned by somebody. I can't be made guilty just because I made a mistake. I can't be made into a bad person just because I made a mistake. And neither can they. That's what it means to say, I am as God created me. I can't be made vulnerable. I'm not vulnerable. How can a creation of God be weak? How can a creation of God be changed from something glorious to something that's ugly and guilty and shameful? That's what you're saying when you say, I am as God created me. And then when you remember that you are as God created you, and you can't be hurt or abandoned or changed into something shameful or unlovable, when you say that and when you remember that, then the entire source of your suffering has been uprooted. That's why the next sentence says, I am as God created me. God's creation can suffer nothing. When you say, I am as God created me, what you're saying is, I can't suffer being attacked, being abandoned, being changed by fear, being made into something shameful. It's the same as saying, God's creation can suffer nothing. And I am God's creation. So when you are feeling hurt by somebody, I am as God created me. As God created me, I can't be hurt. Especially by that or anything. Nothing God created can be hurt by that. Right? And when you feel afraid when you feel, like you said, when you feel guilty because you attacked somebody or gave somebody guilt. I am as God created me. I cannot be changed into a bad person just because I made a mistake. You know, I'm not an unlovable person just because I made a mistake. So, I love it. So to say, I am as God created me is to say, who I really am in my truth can suffer nothing. So really, that's the end of suffering. That is the end of suffering. And it is the way that you take your place among the healers of the world. Now, when you remember you were created by God and not that person and not that situation, then the only thing you're going to be extending is a whole lot of love and a whole lot of joy and a whole lot of creativity that's going to bless the whole world. This is how we take our place among the saviors of the world. When we're tempted to feel weak and frail and vulnerable and attack from that weakness, then all we're being asked to do is to not let weakness guide our actions, and then to remember the truth about ourselves, to say the truth about ourselves even if we don't believe it. And then the strength of our higher self, which is a power you can't even conceive of, will come on in and take over from there, and it will create only the good, the beautiful, and the holy. And people will give you credit for it. I love that. I love it when I get credit for what Spirit did through me. That's a good deal. All right. So we're going to stop here for now because it's 8 o'clock, and we're just going to do a integration meditation. And would you like to play for the integration meditation? Wonderful. Hi, Rhonda. Rhonda says, whether it is severe illness or a little indigestion after dinner. Exactly. The suffering comes from the same place. It comes from that temptation to see ourselves as just a body that is weak and frail and vulnerable. And that's where it comes from, that temptation. And sickness also comes from the temptation to let that perception of weakness and frailty and vulnerability guide our action. Come on in. All right. Let me see here. I'm going to do this. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can try. Let's come close. Well, let's see who's coming as close. Let's see if we can try to get both of us in here. And I'll come close to you. Okay. Wonderful. All right, so I'll start and you play, and then if you also feel so motivated to channel anything like from what you experienced or heard, feel free.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Beautiful. All right. So close your eyes and take a breath. Now we're going to allow what we heard to percolate down. Integrate. And breathe and feel. I want you to bring to your awareness a trial or a tribulation, a problem that you have been struggling with recently. I want you to bring it to your awareness. And first I want you to just do a really quick inventory of your version of this problem, your story about where it came from, what it means, how it happened. And then ask yourself how your answer has worked out for you. Did it keep that problem from coming back? Now let's tell ourselves something different about this trial, this tribulation, this pattern. I want you to tell yourself, this trial is a lesson that I failed to learn in the past, that's being presented to my awareness once again, so that where I made a faulty choice before, I can make a better choice now and escape the pain that the choice I made in the past brought. Notice how it feels to tell yourself something different about this trial, this pattern. And now I want you to imagine your higher self in all its radiant glory standing before you. And I want you to see and hear your higher self in all its radiant glory, saying to you, my beautiful brother, sister, my beautiful innocent self, choose once again. Would you like to learn this lesson and escape from all the pain that this unlearned lesson has brought? Would you like to learn this lesson finally, once and for all, and take your place among the healers of the world? Because you can. Choose once again. And let's go ahead and answer our higher self and tell our higher self, thank you. I do want to learn this lesson. I really do want to stop tempting myself to feel weak and frail and vulnerable with this unlearned lesson. I really do. I want my beliefs that I learned about myself as weak and frail and vulnerable and guilty and separate to be corrected. I want to let my old beliefs be corrected so that I can experience the truth about myself as powerful, as invulnerable, as loving and brilliantly creative. I really do. And so now, as you look upon this old pattern, this old devil, this old trial, I want you to say to yourself the truth. I am as God created me. I'm not as this person or this situation or this problem made me. I wasn't made or created by this problem. I wasn't even created by me. I wasn't created by this other person. I am created by God and God alone. And God's creation can suffer nothing. God's creation can't be abandoned. God's creation can't be shameful. God's creation cannot lose anything. God's creation cannot die. God's creation cannot be sinful or guilty. God's creation cannot be broken. And I am God's creation. And let that truth be true in your mind and your heart. Speak those words upon this trial, this temptation to see yourself as weak and vulnerable. Choose again. Choose.
choose again. Choose again. Breath inside of breath. God is. Breath inside of breath. God is. I am. I am. I am. I choose again. I choose again. I choose again. 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 This life, your gift. This life, your gift. This life, your gift. This life, your gift. This life.
Beautiful. Brought tears to my eyes. Beautiful. That was perfect. My goodness. Thank you so much. Say your last name again.
Wendy DeMoss, ChantYourHeartOpen.com.
ChantYourHeartOpen.com. Wendy DeMoss. Bless you. That was amazing. Can you play for every class? What a gift to have such a gifted artist come take those ideas and put them to music. It's so much easier to open our heart, open to the truth with music like that. So thank you so much. You do help us to chant our hearts open to the truth. Thank you. All right. I appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you guys so much for coming out and joining this healing circle. I appreciate you guys more than I can say. Love you guys. Until next time.